Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Free China Pod, episode 29. And this one I have old friend, great friend, Seth on the podcast. We talk about a range of issues from politics to just self-care and things like that. So just give it a listen. Let us know what you guys think. Right now, under my sweet sultry voice, you're hearing another sweet sultry voice. That is Seth's current band, Afterwords. And this is a perfect state of mind. You can go check out all their stuff afterwards, all one word. I will put links in the description below the podcast and on YouTube below the video. So definitely go check them out, support them. Check out their they got a new single out, which I will play after the podcast. You can listen to it in its entirety without my voice bothering you over the top of it. But yeah, just check all this out. Let us know what you guys think. Seth will definitely be back on soon. If you have questions that you want us or topics that you want us to discuss, just hit us down on the comment section. And we appreciate you guys coming in and listening. Thanks, guys. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Free China Pod, I think episode 29, which is unbelievable. Which means the next one has to be my father, because he's done episode all the tens. He did 10, 20, and now he'll do 30. Hopefully, if I can work it out. So this one we got Mr. Seth, long time like childhood friend, who I probably haven't talked to on the phone for like, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
I'd venture to say longer than that, but
probably true.
It's 21st century. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of phone conversations, which sucks.
So I'm awful at like staying in contact with people too. It's just
for sure, same.
You're busy. You got kids. You got a wife.
Yeah, I mean, I'm busy. I got I got wife and kids. My buddy from work was just calling me to do that. Yeah, wife and kids. I forgot what we were talking about. Is that War of the Worlds going on or something over there?
Oh, are you hearing audio from me?
Yeah. It's
people with modded scooters. You're going to hear a lot of that. There was also some music from the elementary school by my house, so sorry for the audio, everyone. It's random. I mean, actually it's probably worse in some of the night recordings. Hopefully I can get some of this audio to cut it out, but it's yeah, you're going to hear a lot of noisy scooters because people like to mod up their scooters here to sound cool. It's usually
that's what it was.
Yeah.
That was okay.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be like World War II, like a warthog like swooping down, but it's usually just I don't know. Sometimes we call them Bajajo out here. 8+9, just like a ruffian kid, just like a naughty boy.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, before I get interrupted by that phone call, I'm busy. I got a wife and 3 kids and job and stuff, and of course you're obviously busy off on the other side of the world, being a fucking saint. Just saving people.
I don't know about that.
No, man, I don't think I've ever explicitly come out and told you, but it's pretty. I think it's really commendable what you've been doing for such a long time. But I thought when I first knew that you were doing it, I was like, oh well, that's JD, is fucking great guy. And then now, like years later, I'm like, is he gonna come home anytime soon, or is he just? I guess he is home.
The answer is probably not. I don't have like a timeline to ever go back to. I mean, I'm obviously gonna come back visit probably this summer, but I don't have any reason to move back, man. It's like. There's no job opportunities for me back home. I mean, I was an idiot and like studied history in college because it was something I actually enjoyed. But there's no job for me in that. I would have to go back to school, at least to get like a teaching certificate. But no, I love it out here, man. It's so nice.
Yeah, that's kind of from what I've been seeing. Vicariously living through you on social media and whatnot. It seems like you got a really really great setup.
The only bad part is I've like Ari and the other guy I do the podcast with, we deal with like trolls all the time from China. That's about the only downside of living in Taiwan and like trying to like speak up for Taiwan is just that there's so many Chinese trolls.
Yeah, because that's, I mean, I have a very limited scope, obviously, my dumb Western brain, but I do know enough to know a little bit of the history,
Yeah.
China and Taiwan, and that's always been, kind of interesting.
Yeah, you probably know more than most people. I mean, most people, when I tell them I live in Taiwan, they're like, "Wow, how is Thailand?" Like they have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. So that's kind of annoying. But people are kind of like more and more learning at least a little bit about it. That's kind of part of the reason we do the podcast is to kind of inform people about it and show them that like Taiwan is one of the, if not the most like free open democracies in all of Asia, and China is like probably the most repressive authoritarian dictatorial regime, and they do shit like they have 1.8 million Muslims in concentration camps right now and steal people's organs and sell them on the black market, and they're starting to fight against Christianity now and things like that. So it's like, yeah, it's terrible, and people should be like up in arms about it. But most people, the shit in the U.S. is more than most people can handle right now.
Yeah, you just gotta play to the crowd, man.
Yeah.
Like that last thing you said, focus on that, spread that everywhere. People, the Midwest will be up in arms.
Yeah.
There are people persecuting Christians, man.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll go take their oil. Let's get them.
Yeah, exactly, man. Because like for the longest time, it's been basically a little bit like Christianity has always been repressed in China, right? But it's gotten much worse, and now they're talking about like basically shutting down. Like they were trying to work with the Vatican to get like approval to approve priests, but like Xi Jinping who is the president of China, for anyone who doesn't know, is not going to allow that. Like, and they're already doing a lot of stuff to subvert Christianity there. So yeah, I think that's going to get people fired up because people don't, especially like you're talking about, like people in the Midwest, they don't give a shit about Muslims. They think they're all terrorists.
Right.
No offense to any Midwestern listeners. We don't think you're all stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's hopefully, unfortunately, people have to be persecuted to deal with that. But hopefully, it makes some change.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to like that. That's I guess the good thing about living in the times that we live in is some shit gets nipped in the bud pretty quick, bud. Like stuff that could kind of grow and manifest in later times. I mean, with just the communication that we have nowadays, it's like, oh, what's going on in this corner of the world that no one's ever heard of? Somebody make a documentary about it, and let's stop this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. And people get yeah, they mass mobilize super fast because of things like social media. Like there's definitely downsides to some of those things, and sometimes people they just live to be outraged and stuff sometimes, which is also not good, but it is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that right now I'm literally almost on the exact opposite side of the world, and I can just call you up and
you're having your morning coffee, and I'm sitting in my truck looking at a absolutely gorgeous full moon. At night in the stars, it's pretty cool. And to circle back very shortly, not too far back, but what you're talking about, or what we were talking about with communication and everything, I've had a thought that I haven't really, it's just kind of planted. I haven't really let it grow or anything yet, but I've thought about it more in the past 20 seconds on this podcast than I have at any other time, I think. But it just reminded me, like, I think that with this interconnectivity and like the means to communicate with people all over the world and hear news from all over the world, hear what's going on, I think that one of the byproducts of what is happening on a macroscopic scale is that I think we're kind of becoming humankind, is kind of getting closer to a singularity, I guess, of a just kind of global morality, like a global moral compass, which is good because there's people that have been taught things by nurture growing up that are kind of abhorrent and bad, and they're kind of coming into their own and realize, oh, this doesn't make me feel good, so this can't be good. Like, this is not a good thing to do to another person or a good thing to think this way. And the thing to carry along with that is that as we get closer to this kind of global morality, this kind of universal code of ethics and morals, is we have a very freaking large responsibility to nurture that morality, because if there's something that the general global consensus thinks is like, well, this is okay. This is, we can do this. Like we kind of have to use the metric as high as possible for good. And I think we're trying to do that. Sometimes, swinging the pendulum too far in the other direction. But it's something to be mindful of for sure. And that's literally just thoughts coming off the top of my head. I probably sound like a fucking crazy person.
No, I think that's a good point. I think we should be pushing that at least to a pretty high, as high a standard as we can, because it's been so low for so long. I mean, people like, especially people who aren't interested in history, like, forget that, like, for the majority of the time, like, the U.S. was a state. We basically had slavery or some sort of like institutional racism, like, built into the foundation of our country. And like, there's still institutionalized racism, just not necessarily exactly on the books anymore. But it's like the fact that that's changed so much, and it's also, but another thing though is trying to get rid of some of the bad parts and change that morality is also difficult, because you have people that were still alive during those time periods and maybe contributed to a lot of the bad things that happened. So
right, yeah, it's tough. It is, and it's funny that you're kind of talking about the injustices or whatever, throughout history, just the kind of continuum that we as humankind have climbed in the sense of like morality. And it's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day, and to be honest with you, I forgot that you studied history. You're the perfect person to talk to about this, because I am a armchair historian, right? In the sense that, like, I watch some history piece or something like that, and then it strikes my curiosity for a week, and I just try to learn as much as I can about it. And I was thinking the other day, and this is like 101 stuff for someone like you, it's just elementary stuff, but I was thinking, and it's like, there's that common saying or whatever that history is written by the victors or the winners or whatever. And then I was thinking throughout, like, the conflicts and the wars that the United States has been in, and I look at, like, World War II, for example, and I was just thinking about it on a big scale, and I'm like, man, it seems like we were in, like, a fist fight with, the Axis or whatever, and then whenever we were kind of getting our asses kicked, we would just grab their nuts and twist them, or like, bite their finger or something, just like fight fucking dirty. Cause I'm thinking about like Tyson, the bombing of Dresden, right? It's like things weren't really going our way, so like, all right, well, fuck your civilians. We're just gonna go ahead and just murder a whole bunch of people, and then the atomic bombs, like, that's completely. I mean, it's looked at as kind of just history now, but like, think about at the time, that was like a huge, what's the word? Just like going against the
atrocity, like war crime, maybe.
Yeah, war crime. I don't think I'm mincing words. I think that so. Was a war crime, and it's easy for us in our comfortable, lives that we're living now to look back and say like, oh, it was a war crime. Like, who knows what my thoughts would have been in in that time.
Yeah, I'm sure I would almost have been on, probably almost surely everyone, the majority of people were in support of it. And I probably would have been right along with it,
That's exactly what I was thinking. And there is that, I think, argument that I have heard before. I think that may hold water, is that if you're going to, it's like if there's a bully, right? And he's just pushing you and like, we're going to fight, man. I'm going to kick your ass. We're going to fight. And you have, you're bigger than him, you're stronger than him, whatever. Is it more humane to now, knock him out cold with one punch, fight's over, his buddies carry him home, or just stop, man, and then get into a fight and you try to take it easy on him, and then he just gets bloodied and bruised and broken and embarrassed and everything. I mean, it's a pretty weak argument, but I understand it,
I would say you could all. I mean, there's like, I would say there's also. I see that point, and I think, and sometimes that maybe that is in the long run you'll save more civilian casualties and things like that. But like with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it seems that, at least from the information that I've heard recently, that like the U.S. kind of knew that the imperial forces in Japan were waning, and we probably could have done it diplomatically.
Wanted to try it out, wanted to test it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and there is an argument that a little bit, I think, older argument is that like basically the U.S. was ramping up for a ground invasion in which millions of troops on both sides and likely a lot of Japanese civilians would have died. The estimates are a couple million, I think, deaths because of that. So if you weigh those two, then yeah, it gets to the point where it's like, yeah, maybe then that's kind of your example. I think, yeah, I would say, yeah, then that's a very difficult thing to weigh. But if we could have, I don't understand why we didn't, and maybe I don't have all the facts, but it seems like we didn't try to do things diplomatically when we could have. But I don't know. Okay, and this is all armchair
Monday morning quarterbacking stuff, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
interesting to
exactly.
think about. And I love history, and I know we've had many conversations about history.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting stuff for sure. I'm glad that I know people that know a lot more than I do. It's
I
really
don't know how much more I know about history than you. It depends on probably what part, because most of my history is based in mostly America stuff. So
Yeah, you're being pretty modest too. I mean,
Nah, I don't know. I've been bad about.
keeping up with history, because like now it's there's so many things that I'm trying to study Taiwanese history. I'm reading a book about like protests in Taiwan that happened 5 years ago that like kind of changed like the culture of protest and student protest in Taiwan. I'm also trying to study Chinese because I live in Taiwan, so it helps me a lot when I speak it every day. So, and I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to write. It's just like, and I feel like I haven't read a history book in three years maybe.
yeah, I feel yeah. What's your favorite history book that you've ever read?
My favorite one that I've ever read. I mean, I like People's History of America quite a bit. I have a lot that are like I haven't finished it, but what is that?
Germs, Guns, and Steel.
Guns,
That's pretty
Germs, and
good.
Steel. Yeah. Jared Falk, maybe, or I forget. Jared.
I forget who.
Jared Diamond.
I'm really bad with names in general.
Oh, authors. Yeah.
Authors,
I only know it because it's on my bookshelf, and I look at it when I'm high and spacing out.
There's a one that I've gone back to a few times because like I did a lot of like like Southern studies in like regarding the U.S. like Southern culture and things like that, and like Jim Crow and things like that. So there's a book by I forget the guy's name. I could go grab it. I'll go grab it here later. It's called This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed, and it's basically about like armed black resistance and like basically from post-slavery until like 1960s 1970s. So you got like Deacons for Defense, you have Black Panthers, things like that, and it's basically talking about how we put up on a pedestal of people like Martin Luther King, and for good reason. Amazing leader, wonderful man, but at the same time we don't recognize people like Malcolm X, who said by any means necessary. We don't recognize these people that were driving around black communities with shotguns trying to protect their women and children, So I thought it was a really interesting perspective, and like I'm mainly a nonviolence guy, but I see that book really gave me a perspective to show you, yeah, sometimes you need to have the crazy guy in your group that has the shotgun that's telling the guy that's trying to come murder you guys that, yeah, you can try it, but like we're gonna go out swinging, and like you're gonna lose a lot of people because this is our spot kind of thing.
Right. We're not gonna be soft targets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not gonna just like let you kill us in protest because the media and things like that aren't gonna cover it. Like we're not just gonna go down like that.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting point that you're bringing up about how kids. I mean, even my kids, when we're teaching them about that stuff, that point in history. Well, Ella, because the other ones aren't really old enough. Noelle's 5. She doesn't really understand, but and so we teach her all this stuff like on in February, we focus on like the Tuskegee Airmen and a couple other things like that, and then she has this book about Martin Luther King. And when we were looking at the bookstore, and we're looking at all these books and everything, and like there was none about Malcolm X, and the reason is because you can't really sit down with a children's book and say, and then Malcolm X, the stuff that he did, and the point that I'm making is that it's easy, like you said, all credit, all credit in the world to Martin Luther King and what he did in the civil rights movement. Like everybody
Absolutely.
just knows that it was
Yeah.
absolutely momentous. But it's not easy to understand Malcolm X's point of view. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
scary for white people to look at that. I'm trying to be careful with what I'm saying. And you know what? It's similar to kind of what's going on right now in America, because I think that somebody would be naive if they said that, race relations are great and it's getting better,
Yeah.
And the thing is, I live in an extremely liberal area, and I would classify, I'm very far left of center, right? But sometimes, yeah, the area where I live is just a bit too much. But I have a couple of people, and there's this one guy that I know, and I see it mostly on Facebook, and he's really like militant, like almost to the point where I'm like, dude, like take it easy on white people, man. Like kind of literally promoting violence towards white people whenever something happens, like some controversy in the news, violence towards an African American person or something, and then they'll hop on and say, do this, which I absolutely understand.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I guess, the situation that they were finding themselves in the 1960s. Like shit, what are we gonna do about this? Do we fight back? Do we try to protest and make arguments against this? It's tough for sure.
Yeah, it is. And I think now it's a little bit. I'm not going to say it's an easy situation because, one, I'm not black, never had to deal with any sort of racism and things like that. But I will say, with the proliferation of like the cell phone, the camera phone, like it is getting better. So instead of, and I'm not one that I'm going to say like they should just, now that there's, a camera phone and you can shoot someone with a camera phone instead of a shotgun, that you should just lay down and take it. I mean, that's up to everyone to make their decision, and I would like to have a discussion about that with a person of color. But yeah, I think it is hopefully getting better because we have things like we can put, but then at the same time, I understand that anger and frustration because you have people like Philando Castile get killed, and you have people like Eric Garner in New York get literally choked to death, broad daylight on the street. Literally, he was trying to break up a fight, and because before they had caught him selling loose cigarettes, they fucking choke him to death. And then nothing happens to the cops every time. Nothing happens. They shoot a fucking 11-year-old boy in the middle of a park. Yeah. Fucking all that shit, and nothing happens consistently over and over again. And then you have fucking idiots go out there and say shit like blue lives matter and fucking all lives matter and this shit. It's like, you are fucking completely missing the point, and it drives me insane. So I understand that wanting to be angry and maybe even wanting to lash out violently. I would hope that we try to quell all the violence because there's far too much violence in America, but I could totally understand that feeling.
Yeah, and the thing is, I made, because I try not to engage, because it's just, they're obviously valid, to be upset and have those feelings. And I talked to him one time, and I was like, I absolutely get where you're coming from, man. Like, me, like, we talk all the time. You know where my heart is, like, you know where I'm coming from. But I fear that you are alienating people that are probably would like to be your ally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because look, shit, I don't know. It's, you know what? not to switch gears too much, but you know what I fucking love, man? And I don't know if it's a generational thing, like our age group, and just people have been this way at different age groups throughout the generations, or if it's a product of, this century, these times that we live in. But growing up, you always heard, like, you have polite conversation with people, don't bring up religion, politics, anything like that. And that's all I ever fucking do. Like, that's, I'll meet somebody for the first time at like a show or something. We're hanging out, backstage or something. And within 10 minutes, and it's not me bringing it up, a lot of the times. And then we're just talking about like the deepest shit. And what's cool about it is that it never really gets volatile, like we and maybe it's just I'm a pretty good conversationalist. Like, I don't really prod too much, but it never gets to like shouting. Like when we disagree, and then when we find more middle ground, like I really love that that's the time we live in. I have some really fucking good conversations, and I really cherish that.
I'm totally on board with you. I've disliked that phrase since I was probably in high school. It's just like, why the fuck not? That's the most interesting shit to talk about.
What are you gonna talk about? Yeah.
Like, what do you want to talk about the weather or something? That's like the joke. Is that like that's the boring shit to talk about? Is all the other stuff. Like, oh, did you see? Like, I mean, there's other things. There's music. There's philosophy and things like that. But yeah, man, history, politics. That's my wheelhouse, man. I love talking about that stuff. And to agreed, like. Literally yesterday, I happened to be to work really early because another class got canceled, so I ended up being at work really early, and I was sitting there writing an article, and then a few, I guess 2 people that I'm like, I talk to on a regular basis at work, we just started like an hour-long conversation about the 2020 race and like a bunch of other stuff, Taiwanese history and politics, and some person that I never knew came up and was like, "You guys talking about American politics?" And we were like, "Yep." And she just like hung around and talked with us. It's just like, yeah, people like talking about that stuff because it's substantive, man. It's not, it's not fleeting conversation that has no impact on your life. Politics, and I say this all the time, politics literally affects every piece of your life, and I've challenged people to come up with one thing that politics doesn't affect in your life, and I still have not heard a good answer.
Yeah, it's kind of scary or sad, I guess, that you know, everything. Because I was trying to think about stuff. I'm like, what, like sex? Nope.
And
Yeah,
sex
everything.
is, yeah, they could technically, I mean, gay sex was basically illegal, sodomy even.
Well, yeah.
Which is, sodomy doesn't have to be gay sex, and that was illegal for a long time. You could get arrested for that. Unmarried sex.
Sodomy.
In Taiwan, one of the things that I think is wrong is they have, if you're caught cheating on a spouse and you have good evidence, you can get like some serious time. Like, I mean, I think it's like a year.
Oh shit, jail time?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, right? So, yeah, I don't think it doesn't happen a lot, and there's a high burden of proof. But it's like I've talked with people. I'm like, that's absurd. Like, yeah, you should never cheat on anyone, but you shouldn't go to fucking jail for it.
Yeah. The fact that it's on the books, you know.
Yeah, I think it's an old law that hasn't got changed, but it's still fucked up. So yeah, it definitely sex. I mean, people talk about religion. My religion. Look at China, man. They put you in a fucking camp.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Everything from the water you drink to the fucking air you breathe. It's all politics.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Hey, we need to. I didn't do this because I'm a bad podcast host, and I just like having conversations. But so we should give people a backstory, a little bit on you. Tell people who you are. You're a modern Renaissance man.
pretty much.
That's how I describe
That's
it.
how I describe you.
You know what? I've thought about this, and it's a really embarrassing. I'm like a wannabe. Is it pseudo armchair intellectual? You know, it's. I don't know what the fuck I am. I'm. You know what I am? I'm a guy that gets curious and he finds out stuff. And I am in no way claiming to be smart because that's the thing is I don't ever figure any shit out, you know? Like I've never come up with a theorem or, you know, any sort of like, you know, value or anything like that. I just read shit other smart people come up with or think of and like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's cool.
Same here, Betty. It's pretty much the same idea for me. I mean, I think that's okay. I mean, that's what you're always going to be, like an aspiring intellectual until you become an intellectual, you know. It's like
right, and that's the thing to remember too is that like those people like okay, so who's I guess the most obvious answer for people that when you think of like intellect or brains are like Albert Einstein, right? Well, the thing is Albert Einstein wasn't just working in a patent office, playing with his thumbs. He's like energy equals mass. You know, like he read the works of other people just like, you know, all of us are doing until one day he gained enough knowledge to think, oh, well, if I put this thing this guy did and this thing this guy did together, maybe it works out to this. And then, you know, boom, one of the biggest, you know, scientific advances in modern history. And that's the cool thing about it is the access. You know what? Here's something to well, God, I hate my brain sometimes. I'm all over the fucking place. I stutter because
It's
I
all
can't.
right. It's all right. That's how this podcast works, man.
Yeah, that's a big thing that I'm coming to find out in this stage of my life is that I fucking stutter so much and it drives me up a wall. My brain just goes a million miles a minute and my mouth is trying to keep up and I'm like, well, oh God,
Yeah.
it's frustrating. But
Oh,
what
dude,
I was
editing a podcast, I feel your pain. I do it all the time.
yeah,
Go,
but
go ahead, though. Go ahead.
so briefly, I guess just to give some credibility or whatever, my name is Seth, and we grew up together, in church and doing music and just hood rat shit, right? And
Yeah, we did a lot of hood rat shit. I met you probably what, junior high school?
it had to have been like sixth grade, I
Or
think.
maybe
Is that-
okay, yeah, because I moved to Big Lake going it like the summer before 7th grade.
Yeah, so it was definitely it was around then, about like seventh grade or so. And then yeah, just in church and just being friends growing up, and then I joined the military when I was 17, and I got stationed up in Washington State, and I did the military thing for 8 years, and then I got sick of banging my head against a wall, and so I got out, and now I'm a finance manager, and I like my job, got a good life, and I'm just trying to live life to the fullest, man. Just trying to enjoy this shit.
Yeah, you got it, and you're like you've like kind of try to push back and be modest about this, but you're probably one of the most, if not the most talented musician I know in person that I'm actually friends with. Like I know a lot of people like some of the people that were in your band are also quite talented at music, but the things I've seen you do with the guitar, I'm just like that's amazing. And I just started playing guitar, so I'm nowhere
awesome.
near an expert or anything. So maybe I'm missing something, but it seems it's amazing. I don't know.
Well, thank you, first of all, and I will say that I do hear that every now and then, and the thing is, I have to downplay it, and I have to do all that because I am very prone to egotism. And so I have to kind of keep myself in check. Like I know I'm pretty good at music. There's other things that I wish I was good at, But also the fucking reality is every time I think I'm good or like, oh man, I'm pretty good, I like to do an exercise when I'm practicing. It's the most beneficial thing that I've found to do. And it's called the YouTube exercise, where anytime I think I'm getting good, I just hop on YouTube, type in whatever instrument I'm playing, and watch 10 million, 9-year-olds just blow my shit out of the water. And it brings me back down to earth, and it's really important for me to do.
That's good. Yeah, it's good that at least you recognize it, because a lot of people have, just false ideas of grandeur in their head, and they never check themselves. So I guess this says a lot about the introspection that you possess to be able to like recognize that, I would say.
Yeah, you got to work at it. You gotta try to figure your shit out, try to figure yourself out. But yeah, I'm still doing music, and you mentioned my band, so since we're doing a podcast, I might as well go ahead and drop a shameless plug in there. My band that I'm playing in now is called Afterwords, and we just released a new single and music video a while ago, like maybe 2 months or so ago. It's called The Deep End. I'm sure you'll put like a link in the description or something like that.
Yeah, I'll link it, and if I can get like some audio, I'll play a little bit of it if that's okay. Maybe after.
Yeah, I'll send you I'll send you the track to use.
Yeah, we'll get it up. So hopefully after the podcast, I'll put it a little bit in the intro, and then I'll put the song after the podcast, so everyone can check that out. And don't forget to go over to the SoundCloud, YouTube, all the stuff.
Yeah, for the podcast. Huh?
I mean for your band. Where can people check you out? I'll put links, but just so people.
Yeah,
can see
shit,
it.
man. It's 2019, man. Open up Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, iTunes. We're all over there. We got an EP on all the major platforms. It's called Frames. It's really, obviously me saying it's really good. But we're really proud of it, and the new stuff we have we have 4 new tracks. We were originally going to release it as an EP, and it was recorded with Casey Bates. He recorded with MXPX and a whole bunch of other really awesome bands that we grew up listening to, and that stuff just it sounds great. It's produced so fucking well. The music is great, and but now we're kind of thinking, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on with like how music is consumed nowadays, and we're really trying to like break the mold a little bit from the typical, full length album every 2 years or whatever. And so we were thinking, I mean, like we're not signed by anybody. It's all DIY. Like, why don't we just make a video possibly for all 4 songs and just release them as singles whenever. Because there's no obligations to any record company, and I mean,
yeah, exactly.
It's so there's some really cool stuff that we're doing. We're going to be releasing some new music here very soon. We're kind of coming back off hiatus. We had some member changes, so now I'm playing drums now, and so we're kind of getting back on our feet and getting ready to start up the machine again. But
it's cool, man.
Yeah.
Do you guys tour at all? Just like locally, or?
So, man, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of really interesting things going on with the music industry nowadays. And I think that, so just like small, like West Coast runs, like maybe just a long weekend run, we'll do that stuff. Yeah. But that's the thing, is it so much has changed to where, like, even here's what I'll say. A lot of, everyday people, they have like some band that they like, or aside from like the superstars, like the superstars, but like if there's some like middling band that they think is like, oh, they're famous, right? They're famous. I listen to their music and they're like, famous. Dude, that person, like, they're fucking struggling, like they probably have a day job, struggling to make ends meet. They probably live in an apartment, a nice apartment, but an apartment or some, 1,200 square foot house. Like, it's not the same as it used to be, where you were either a huge star or you were trying to be a huge star. There's a lot of people that make a career out of music, and that's all it is, just a very modest career.
Yeah, lower middle class type thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like kind of because I love my job, I make good money, I got a great family, I got a great home life. So that's really all I would ever aspire to, is just to be able to like make enough money to support my family and do music as like almost another job. Like I don't ever foresee it being a full deal.
Yeah. I feel that. That's kind of where my buddy and I are at with this, I think, or at least I am. I shouldn't speak for him, but it's like right now we make zero money off of this, and honestly, I spend money like in like buying all the equipment and stuff, and I'm trying to like more appropriately soundproof because in Taiwan everything has to be made of like a hard surface. So like my walls are concrete, my floor is tile, like everything is a hard surface except for my bed. So it's like sometimes the audio is really hard, and I live right across from a night market that's busy. So sometimes it's like hard, but if we could make even a little bit of money off doing this podcast and writing articles, that would be awesome. I would probably still keep teaching because I like teaching. So I feel like I'm in a pretty similar spot with you. It's just like right now it's kind of like a part-time job / hobby, but I'm not making any money off of it right now. But that's, even if I never made money off this, I probably would still continue doing it until I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. What do you like? And that's the unfortunate thing, is sometimes there's so many like just talented, like true artists with a vision and like just awesome things going, but they don't have a fucking degree in business or a degree in marketing, or you know what I mean? So a lot of things fall by the wayside. I mean, what are you kind of doing to as far as that type of stuff, like generating the revenue?
Well, I'm trying to get better at
just
like,
interested, most of all.
Yeah. Right now, it's a lot of it is just trying to like build brand. I've been trying to push myself to like write more articles, because sometimes we can get people to read the articles, especially if like because I run, like my buddy runs basically the site. Like he'll run all of like the the layout of the site and like uploading things and things like that. And I do all social media, and I handle the podcast all myself. So I've been trying on social media to like grow our presence a little bit. Like we still don't have a ton of followers, and like I hate Facebook. I think it's so awful what they do with the algorithms. Like stuff I post, basically like 5% of our followers will see it. So I've been doing a lot of stuff on Twitter, because Twitter is much more like a open marketplace in terms of that. It's got its own problems, but so right now it's just like try to grow the brand. Like I've gotten like some amount of like clout within like, I guess I shouldn't even say clout. I've like dipped my toe into like the Taiwanese, not actually Taiwanese people, but like basically foreign news media that like talks about Taiwan a lot, and China. So I've gotten a few people who are like somewhat respected in there to like follow us and have some sort of discourse with us. So right now it's just about that, and it's just about getting people, because most of our listeners are American, and soon we're gonna, hopefully this is the case, maybe this weekend we're gonna try to do some Chinese language podcasts. So because Taiwanese people, even though like their English is pretty good, it's usually pretty good, a lot of them don't want to listen to an English podcast. They're too scared. Like even though I tell them, oh, you can listen to it at half speed and like maybe you can study some English, it's so daunting of a task to them, which I understand, because if I listen to a Chinese podcast, I would be in the weeds too. So
yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna try to start doing some of that, which will hopefully like get more Taiwanese listeners, which is another thing I want, because I want to have discussions with Taiwanese people about what they think about Taiwan. I don't want to just be like, this is what I think about Taiwan as a foreigner. It's just like, well, I don't always have the best perspective. I'm kind of an outsider looking in.
Yeah, and you know, just thinking about this now off the top of the old skull there, I think it's kind of a cool niche market, maybe, in the sense that like, so if somebody came up to me, and I don't mean any offense by this at all, but if somebody came up to me and like, man, I found this awesome podcast where they talk about like Taiwanese politics and stuff, and it's like these American guys, I'd be like, cool, man, I'll check it out. You know, but like, it is kind of cool, because you kind of mix intermingle, like this is just a fucking conversation, you know, like we just so happen to talk about politics sometimes, and then, you know, Taiwan and China. So I think that there's like a lot of people out there that are interested in this stuff and would be, you know, completely open to hearing just two, like, I'm a normal ass guy, you know, like just hearing just regular people talk about it in normal language, and just kind of cutting up a bit. And so I think there's definitely something there. It's really cool. But then I've told you a million times, I think it's, you know, awesome what you're doing with the podcast and stuff.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I mean, we're doing our best, and like you said, most of it is just like when we started this, I was thinking, oh, we're just gonna talk about Taiwan and maybe like hardcore politics, and then soon after that, it's just like, because like I started the podcast mainly because I wanted to just talk with my buddy more, and because literally every time the reason we started the website is every time we were in a room together, we'd have an hour-long discussion about politics, maybe sometimes 2-3 hours, just up late into the night, like, hey, did you see this article? Oh yeah, that was cool, like blah blah blah. Or he would say something and I'd be like, nah, I don't really agree with that. And then if you listen to the podcast, there's numerous episodes where the last 30 minutes is just us like not really arguing, but having like a heated debate, and like over like minute policy detail, but it's still fun and it's interesting, and at the end of it we just like high five and hug it out, and we're like, all right, yeah, like no one's mad, like we're just talking. So it's, yeah, I like the conversational style. I don't like when it's too suit and tie, like stuffy, like so Seth, what have you been doing to further your music career? Like that's old, man. That's I don't like that stuff.
Yeah, and it's really, because you ever like sit down with someone and you're talking, I guess just an echo chamber, I guess, but you're talking with someone like, fuck, man, this guy's just agreeing with everything I say. Like, this isn't fun. This isn't like, I'm not learning anything. 100%. You're not, you know, growing at all. And that's, it's gonna be pretty cool. But I also wanted to just talk a little bit before we go about what the fuck is happening in Seattle, because I know that you probably know as much about, the Seattle politics and what's going on as much as I know about what's going on in Taiwan. But
yeah, you're probably accurate.
yeah, and here's the thing too. Like, I don't expect us, we are not going to agree about everything, right? And that's why, I'd love to come back on the podcast in the near future where we can kind of not talk so much about, my credentials and stuff. We can just kind of dive into
the intro stuff.
Yeah, just dive into the meat and potatoes and get gritty with it. But dude, and the reason I'm saying this because I just saw something. It was about at a Seattle City Council meeting, and they were just. You can look it up. I'm sure you'll see it. But the council member was just like an asshole to this guy that was trying to just like make a public comment, and it's gonna be all over. But dude, like, Seattle is fucking up, man. Like, I think that Seattle is a very clear case of, like, I don't know what a good, the nomenclature is to use, but of, like, leftism or social justice or liberalism gone awry. Like, I think that I have a pretty grounded, moral compass and ethical, ethically speaking. I think that I am pretty far on the left. And sometimes I'm just like, dude, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, this is nuts. This is crazy. So first of all, I mean, dude, and I hate that I have to, like, validate myself like this, but, like, I'm a really emotional person. I cry all the fucking time. Like, I'm a very caring person, And like, I volunteer at the Seattle Children's Hospital, which fucking steals my soul. Like, it just takes so much out of me.
I bet.
So why I say that is I have all the empathy in the world for homeless individuals and people that are homeless with mental illness, which is 90% of that population, and it's tough. But dude, fucking
veterans too,
exactly, but Seattle is just bad. So I'll tell you, the last time that we went to Seattle, me and my wife, we went to a Mariners game. We got 3 kids, and I work my ass off. Like, we get out once a year maybe. And so I was driving around, and I'm talking downtown, like like next to the stadium, like downtown Seattle. And I turn the corner, and I just see this, like, fucking Hooverville of, like, these tents and, like, camps and stuff downtown. Like, there's, like, Starbucks and stuff, and these tents were, like, spilling out onto the road, like the street. Like, you had to drive around in downtown Seattle around this camp. And I don't want to, like, judge anybody, but you're looking at who's in these camps, like the people that are in there, and it's like people that look my age, like maybe 25 to 30, and they got more tattoos than I have. They probably got $3,000 worth of tattoos. And I'm like, man, I don't want to. I don't know. But, so there's that, and then one of my buddies, Matt, he went to Seattle, he took his in-laws up there, and he turned the corner, and there was a woman with her dress hiked up, shitting on the sidewalk in downtown Seattle.
Damn.
And not to mention, I mean, there's a myriad of other things, like the fact that, like, you always see people share it on Facebook, like, the 40-year-old stay-at-home wives, they always, share all the, like, if you're gonna ban this, but you'll let junkies shoot up in safe ejection sites or whatever, which, like, that's a whole nother topic there. But it's bad when it becomes a reality. Like, you're walking around Seattle and you look down under the overpass and there's just, like, a pile of used hypodermic needles, and you're like, dude, we gotta fucking clean this shit up. Like, this is bad. The cops are, like, they are hemorrhaging cops, King County Sheriff's Department, because no one wants to be a cop there because they can't do their job. Like, every single fucking thing they do, like, if they walk up to somebody to, like, acting suspicious, hey, what are you doing, they get blasted in the media, like, harassing this man, whatever. And I just read an article last night about this Emerald City Guitars. You can look it up. It's this fucking awesome store in Seattle, Emerald City Guitars. And throughout the past month, they've had, like, an outrageous, like 4 or 5 burglaries, like people stealing like $3,000 guitar and stuff. And the cops can't do anything about it. And so this guy came in, and he tried to steal a guitar, and then he pulled a gun on the owner, and the gun was just fed up. He's like, I can't lose any more money. The cops aren't going to do shit. I got to take care of this guy. And so, they ended up tackling, and he chased him down in the alleyway, and the gun went off a couple times, like shot it right by his head, busted out a window. And it's like, how sad is it that shop owners who are just trying to make a living, like, man, these people are like, costing me money. They're stealing all my shit. The cops can't do anything about it because they'll get blasted by the media about it. And he said that it was just a fit of like frustration and rage where he was like, just wasn't thinking clearly. And he's like, I got to stop this guy. If I get killed, fuck it. This is my life, my store,
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus, that's like some third world shit, like, that's why we have cops.
That's fucking crazy.
Anyways, I know I went on for like, 10 fucking minutes about Seattle, but it's rough, man. It's rough. And it sucks because I loved Seattle. When we got here, it's the same reason why I criticize the United States so hard is like I fucking fought for it for 8 years. Like, hey, I'm a fan, okay? like I love this shit. I really truly do think that it is and has the potential to be the best country in the world, and that's why I criticize it so hard.
Yeah, exactly. There's a quote that I really like, and I may get it not totally right, but it's something like dissent is the highest form of patriotism. Because when you care about something, you'll critique it. If I didn't give a shit about America, I don't live there anymore. Like I don't even pay taxes to America because I don't make enough money over here. So I could say fuck it. I don't care about America. Let it burn. But I fucking give a shit about it, and I'm super proud that I was born there. I think it's a lot of great things about America, but yeah, you got to criticize the things if you want them to get better.
Yes, exactly. Point taken for sure.
Yeah. I would be interested. So what do you think are some ways that they could like things that you would suggest to fix Seattle? Like I mean I know that's like a huge daunting question, but are there any like policies that you've like heard about or think should be implemented?
It is a huge question, and I will just say up front that I don't have the answer, and I don't have any answers really, okay? And also, like I've said on this podcast already, I'm nobody. I am just a guy with opinions that nobody should take seriously, okay? And why I say that is like, I don't have the answers. That's why we elect people to come up with the answers who we think are going to be a good fit to do that. But if I had to like, dig down and find the root, like the etymology of the problem is, I think, politicians and decision makers capitulating to people's every want and desire. And I think it's kind of like this. I'm just coming up with this analogy off the top of my head, but I think this is a good one. It's like a child with parents, okay? And the mom is just a, oh, you want to stay up till 9:30 and eat candy for bed? Okay, you can do that, whatever. And the dad has the hard job of saying, no, I'm sorry, you have to go to bed at a regular, decent time. You can't have candy right before bed, and if you do have candy throughout the day, you got to brush your teeth. Like, it's not fun, and it makes, the kid will resent you because he's a child, Which, I mean, I think that 80% of the population are children, or at least think like that sometimes, And no one wants to be the bad guy, like, oh, we're so, progressive, we're so modern, we're trying all this stuff, which is good, and I don't want to squash that, but like, there's laws, man. Like,
there are laws. That's
sometimes you have to do things that people will dislike you for their own good, and that brings up a whole nother topic of like, well, how do you know what's in the best interest of an individual, and I don't have the answer for that, but I don't know, man.
Lots of research and things like that, and you can look at. That's another reason why history is good. You can see what has worked and what hasn't.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's complicated, man. That's why I like politics, but that's another reason that it's frustrating is because everyone has their own ideas, and some of those are more valid than others. But it's why it's important to have conversations like this. Not that we're gonna change anything, but about Seattle necessarily, but I don't know. At least get people thinking. I'm all for anything that's going to make people think a little bit more and question their decisions and beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. And I unfortunately, I think that I think that the term has kind of been hijacked because I hear so many people say it all the time, and it drives me crazy. But like, we just spark a dialogue, you know. We have to create the conversation. We have to start the conversation because it's frustrating. Because like, fucking yeah, like that's absolutely valid. It's completely true. Like, people do need to talk about things to make other people talk about them, to make the news talk about them, to make politicians talk about them. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of just that uphill flow chart, I guess. But sometimes people say it, and I'm like, you're full of shit, bud.
But yeah, it's like, let's spark a dialogue, and then they don't know anything that they're talking about. Yeah,
or they're just pushing their own, like, extremely subjective, like, biased, you know, agenda.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, are you sparking a conversation? Are you sparking a dialogue? You know?
sparking some their propaganda.
Yeah, or are you just, you know, pushing a narrative, trying to push it on everybody else?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's why I think you can tell a lot about people when you do have those dialogues with them, if they're willing to cede points to you, or they challenge you, but you can, I don't know, sometimes the whole let's agree to disagree thing is obviously like, it's old, and like that also can be like an annoying phrase, but like sometimes that's just what it is, you know. Like, it's like, okay, well, we have different feelings on this, and like there's no right or wrong answer here, it's just opinions. So
yeah, that's a very good point about that whole agree to disagree thing, and yeah, it seems a little disingenuous sometimes when somebody's like, because agree to disagree, you know, it has the potential to, like, let's not mince words. Agree to disagree in most cases means whatever, I know I'm right. You know, like, it kind of,
I'm right, you're wrong, but you're too stupid to understand my point.
yeah, so I'm going to stop trying. Exactly. But I mean,
Exactly.
the thing is, the point that I wanted to make is that I have changed my opinions so fucking much, and I've reverted back to thinking ways, and it's always been a point of contention for me when, like, politicians or even other people go after somebody for being a flip-flopper, right? Or like, oh, well, you used to think this way, and now, oh, the winds have shifted and you've changed. Yeah, because fucking learn something new, maybe, you know? Or like, it's good. I think that it's good to contradict yourself because it means that you're growing. Okay, I've changed my mind so many times on things, and that's, I don't know if it's an attribute or a fault, but I'm pretty easily
Both sometimes.
yeah. I'm pretty easily persuaded. Like, if I am like, oh, well, I think XYZ, and somebody makes a pretty damn good point against me, I'm like, yeah, I guess you're kind of right, you know? And then the more you think about it on your own, like in a day or two, I might go back to like, actually, because of this, I think that might actually not. So it's good to like do that, and not just, it's always important to obviously hold fast to your convictions and you know, kind of stand for something and have an opinion that you feel strongly about, but it's don't ever think that it's wrong to like, oh man, maybe I don't think that way anymore, or you know.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I definitely have changed. I've pretty much changed almost my entire political outlook since when I was in probably junior high school. I'm completely different now. I think it's definitely been a good thing for me. I think the flip-flopping point is I think that's a good point, but there is also people who are just going along with the tides to get votes, and that actually does piss me off a lot. Like, there's a few people running in 2020 that I think just have no actual convictions and are just kind of in it to be in it because they think they were born for it, to quote one of them.
Yeah, and that's very true too, and I'm glad you said that too, because yeah, obviously there is like a politician's politician, you know, like the type that, yeah, okay, whatever way is the wind blowing, I'm gonna go that way, and more so, I guess I was speaking generally for like just the population, but and here's actually here's the thing. Let me ask you this. I have followed like local and state politics a little bit more so than I ever have in the past, which means that I'm kind of just dipping a toe, you know? Like, but it seems to me like there's actually a lot of really, really solid fucking people at like the local and state level. And so that's what I was kind of talking about, how like, because there's this one representative that I've been familiar with his policies over the couple of years, and he just recently changed his mind on a pretty monumental subject, and everybody is just tearing him apart. And I hear people talking about it at, like, my place of work all the time, customers talking about it and stuff. And it may just be because he changed his opinion to the one that
They don't agree with.
that I agree with, which is why I feel this way. So
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. Maybe that's call. But it's like, well, yeah, I mean, given new evidence that he's seen and examined, and he's formulated his opinion, he said, maybe I was wrong about that, and maybe this is right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm speaking about marijuana, okay, and the
Yeah.
legalization thereof. So, like I said, obviously I'm admittedly biased, and I could just be thinking that because he changed his opinion to fit mine. But it's like, people change, man. Like, everything
Yeah,
changes,
Yeah, it's
it's-
definitely something to be cognizant of, but at the same, yeah, like exactly what you're saying. Like, I think if you were presented with new evidence, maybe better evidence than you've ever seen, and you don't change your mind, that shows just a lack of maybe moral curiosity, or it just, I don't know. Maybe you don't really, you only believe your ideas for something. Obviously, it's not based on evidence if you're not willing to change it based on evidence. You know what I'm saying? That sounds redundant, but
Well, no, that's a
Yeah,
very
I don't
poignant
know.
thing to say, actually. Yeah.
it's frustrating when people won't change their opinions, and I've seen that a lot. And yeah, so I totally agree with you. I think we need to measure each individual case on its merits, and if they're making the right decision, then I think yeah, good. Thanks for coming around finally. And yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating because I as much as I hate most politicians, and I think especially local level, I agree with you. I think most of them are actually better because they're not making millions of dollars. They're not getting legalized bribes from PACs and super PACs. So I feel like they're more accountable to constituents, and they have to live with those constituents every day and see them every day. So I think, yeah, on the local level, usually the politicians are a little bit better. But on the national level, yeah, I hate most of them, or at least actively dislike them. But yeah, when they make a decision on something, if I judge it to be genuine, then I'm genuinely happy about that. It's like, okay, good, thanks. Things are changing for the positive, hopefully.
Yeah, and exactly. And I, what do you think? I just had a thought when you said that I generally dislike most politicians, and it got me thinking. I'm like, well, yeah, shit. Let me try to think of one that I actually like and would want to. And it got me kind of thinking about politics is fucking boring. And a lot of the things that actually really matter and are really important are fucking boring. And so the thing is, I feel like almost every Bernie, Cortez, all these people that are running or in contention, all these people, they kind of have to sensationalize stances, because it's entertainment, how do people hear, how do people consume what the politicians are saying? Some go to rallies, most don't, some look up what their views are on their own, most don't. Most people hear it through the news outlets, and what gets on the news? Things that make people want to watch, like saying some controversial point.
I think that's it's a direct result of 24-hour news cycles. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here. I think that most people that are kind of in this world know that politicians run on hot button platforms, things like social issues, right? That people really care about, and that have an opinion like, oh, well, this guy, obviously a person of the homosexual persuasion will want to vote for a politician that is in favor of equal rights and things like that. And so they kind of prey, it's just playing to their audience. But so many times when I'm the very few times when I find myself watching news and presidential election coverage and stuff, I'm like, can we fucking talk about some important shit? Okay. Can we, is there any politicians out there that wants to overturn Citizens United and wants to, I mean, Bernie, I guess, but Bernie's, he's got some other really radical things.
Bernie and probably Liz Warren would say to overturn it, and maybe maybe one or two other of the Democratic hopefuls, but yeah, most of them aren't talking about it. I mean, you have like I don't know if you know like Ro Khanna and Tulsi Gabbard, like they would definitely, I can say with pretty for sure that they would both definitely be against it. But your point is well taken. Like people don't want to focus on that stuff because it's not sexy, man. It's not sexy to talk for 3 hours about fiscal policy or like the intricate details of a Medicare for all style system. I personally find that stuff immensely fascinating, but your average person barely knows who's running for president, let alone these innate or like just tiny microscopic issues, you know?
Yeah, and it's you know, it's well designed, and what I mean by that is these politicians, they know exactly what they're doing. Okay, there's a reason why they sneak things into bills. Like there's some, I mean, everybody knows this. I'm not saying anything, you know, like I said, earth shattering or anything. They'll name some, you know, proposal, the homes for vets bill or something, and in there they sneak some other shady shit that people don't know about. And if they were to actually read the, you know, hundreds of pages bill or something, if they were to actually read it, they still wouldn't understand because it's just legal jargon. It's just vomit, you know. And so I get it. And the reason I say that is because I don't care about that shit. Okay, like I don't want to learn about, like you said, fiscal policy and all that stuff. But I also hate when the country is kind of shitty. So like so you want to like learn this stuff so you can be like, I don't know if that's kosher. I don't know if that is necessarily the direction that I want us heading.
Yeah. It's got to be a balancing act, and I understand most people don't have the interest or like the maybe even the time. Like a lot of, like, I'm super privileged in that I work 30 hours a week, and that's considered a lot for a teacher working at the type of school I work at here. And so I have a lot of free. I stay up till, I don't work until usually 5 p.m. So I have, whenever I wake up, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock until I go to school, and then I get home at 9 or 10, and then I stay up until 3 and do this sort of shit. Or like the last podcast I talked about it, like every time, because I'm on Twitter quite a bit, and to find articles and also to like grow our brand. And I see, that sounds really hokey to say grow our brand. That sounds stupid. I'm gonna edit that out. No, I won't. But anyway, like I'll go in and watch the Senate or in the congressional committees where they're talking about like funding schools and shit like that, which I don't know. For some reason I find it immensely entertaining and also immensely frustrating, because a lot of the politicians there, you can tell that they have no interest in listening to these people that come in to talk. I watched the Cohen hearing. I watched 7 hours of Cohen hearing. I stayed up until 5 a.m. to watch that shit. So it's just like, I find that stuff fascinating. My point here being that I find it fascinating, but I know that most people don't. And so, I don't know, hoping that like small, like our podcast here, I mean, we have like 20, 40 million listeners, something like that. And by that, I mean like 100. But like, I hope that like small media is proliferated more. And I think because of YouTube and things like that, it has been, because like we were talking about earlier, the 24-hour news cycles, even the quote unquote liberal ones like MSNBC and CNN, a lot of times the stuff they have on there is just, it's not substantive, man. It's, how many times today did Trump shit his pants because he's losing his fucking mind? And it's just like, it's not useful for people. And I think people get turned off to that because they feel like it's just entertainment. Like it's just,
why watch the news when I've already heard what Trump's doing this or what this is,
exactly.
It's I absolutely agree with you. And I also agree with the rest of the population because, like I said, it's fucking boring and it's really hard. I never thought that I would say this. It's hard to fucking pay attention, man. You know?
Oh yeah, I felt that way since I was in school.
Yeah, and the thing is, if they were to talk about, like you said, substantive stuff, so we're XYZ news channel now, and we're going to talk about the issues that matter, you know? It lasts a month before the ratings are not good enough for anybody to fucking, in the right mind, do. But you also, kind of touched on another thing with alternative media in the past, 4 or 5 years, and about how, because here's the thing, JD, I know that you, I don't know if you still do, but at a certain point in time, we're into the Young Turks and watching them and stuff, and I went through that phase, but I remember when I was actually deployed when I first found out about the Young Turks, and how I found them out was, so I was deployed, and I was in Iraq, and my job was a fueler, so I worked on the flight line, fueling up jets, launch, and surfacing them and stuff. And you just kind of don't put two and two together. Like I'm working on the flight line, and I'm loading up a jet. It's got ammunition. It's got bombs on it and stuff, and then it lands a couple hours later without that stuff, and you just don't even think about it, And then I ran across this news story about I know you know it. Everybody knows about the wedding that was bombed in Yemen, and obviously I was just so heartbroken and distraught, and so I was reading about it and everything. And then I stumbled across the Young Turks, and this was like young Turks, very DIY still, and just kind of like, hey, these guys are saying a lot of things that I agree with, and so I just went down that rabbit hole. And it ran its course. I followed them for a long time, and then they kind of started saying some stuff that I was like, I don't entirely agree with that. And then it just got more and more where I was like, all right, they're a little bit off of the spectrum where my stop. I stopped at my stop, and they kind of kept going, chugging down the line. But I still like those guys. I support what they're doing. I think it's great that they're a huge voice now out there, in support of ideals that I majorly, still hold dear to my heart. So, but I'm just talking, the circle back, the point is alternative media is a huge kind of springboard into this shit we're doing right here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I totally agree. I still watch Young Turks sometime. It used to be in college was my main deal. That was the one I watched. Now I have a lot that I listen to. Young Turks is more supplemental for me, and I'm with you on a lot of things. When I was in college, I was just yeah, everything these guys say is right, and then slowly started learning more because I was pretty apolitical in high school. I probably would have considered myself a Republican because my dad was, and I didn't really hate anyone, but the policies that I would have probably been in favor of were probably not the best for the country. Yeah. So I feel once I got to college and I was met some people that were when I grew up, I lived in Omaha. Most of the people I think have probably heard this if you listen to the podcast, but I grew up in Omaha until I started kindergarten, and the majority of my friends, at least in a few of the apartments I lived in, were black kids. So I never really had a racial animosity. I was probably classic colorblind type thing, which can also present problems because you don't pay attention so much. But I basically was I'm not racist, and in high school I lived around a bunch of people that flew Confederate flags and used the N-word all the time, and I was yeah, that's really gross. But I probably wasn't very progressive on same-sex marriage issue stuff. I was been raised in the church, and oh well, I love the people, love the person, hate the sin, or whatever the old phrase is. So, but then I went to college, and one of my best friends and roommates came out to me and was telling me about, he was I was really afraid to come out to you because I was afraid you'd hate me or not be my friend, and I was fucking broke my heart. So after that, it was just I got pretty radicalized, and I was just but yeah, now I think after leaving college and now I try to do a lot of I think watching stuff on YouTube is okay, and can be really good for people who don't have time. For me, when I'm driving, I commute to work on a motorcycle, so I'll listen to Young Turks or Majority Report or Secular Talk, something like that. But when I have the time, I prefer to do to read. I think a lot of the print journalism is pretty good, really investigative journalism that's going on. Yeah, even though a lot of it's getting put behind paywalls now, which drives me fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, just how similar because we really, every once in a while, we'll touch base on Instagram or something, check in, see how each other's doing. But it's really interesting how similar our like, political journeys. Just I guess fucking growing up, like I guess it's just it's funny how similar it is because exact same. Grew up small town and we grew up together, and I viewed myself as a Republican even though I didn't know what a Republican was. I didn't know what a republic was. I just, I'm a Republican because that's what everybody else is. And the same thing, I got out on my own and kind of learned what each side, to speak plainly, just what each side kind of stood for. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm kind of not that. And then so once I found that out and you kind of have your like political awakening, you're like, so am I a liberal? I'm a liberal? I'm a liberal. I'm a liberal. I'm a liberal. And so you go fucking hog wild and you're like, this, that. And then like after a while you kind of start, calming down a bit and you're like, well, I guess I kind of see that point too. And then, so you kind of even out a little bit, you kind of rein yourself in. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I would say I'm the same. I'm still like, I think it's important to remain passionate about things, which I'm not saying that you're saying you're not, but like there's kind of like an idea that like everyone like goes to the center, and I would say in terms of like the political spectrum in the U.S., I'm probably pretty far left. Like I'm in favor of, it depends how you look at it, because if you look at within the Overton window of the U.S., I would say I'm pretty far outside that. I'm probably pretty close to like what a Bernie Sanders would believe, and he's considered like a radical in the U.S. But actually, if you look at polling, he could be considered a centrist in some ways, because Medicare for All polls at over 70%, even over 50% of Republicans are in favor of it. Legalizing marijuana is something like 70 or 80% now. Minimum wage increase is like 60, 70%. Like all these things are overwhelmingly popular. So to say that like those things are radical, in Washington they're radical, but in normal people's ideology. So my whole point is just to say that like it's sometimes hard to quantify where it's like where you fall on that political spectrum. And I don't know, I also work because I care about it so much. I like feel like I'm pretty passionate about it, so I didn't didn't fall off it, because a lot of people I feel like when they get to probably around our age or maybe a little older, they kind of just with the having kids and being married. That's another thing. I don't have a girlfriend or kids, so I have a lot even more free time than, because I don't work a ton of hours. So it's like I have a lot of time to invest in that. But I think a lot of people just get sucked into life, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but they kind of lose, the political thing, and they still a lot of like the boomers and stuff, they still ascribe to the old adage that you said is like, don't talk about religion and politics. So they're just like, well, whatever. I don't really have anyone to discuss these ideas with, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'm just going to vote for maybe I'll vote for the president, and that's about it.
Yeah. You know what? And to your point, I want to say something. And here's the thing. So stick with me here, because I'm about to go down a road that might get a little bit dark, but just stick with me. There is a point at the end, okay? But so there's this saying, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, because I don't remember it exactly, but it said something like, if you're not a liberal at 25, you don't have a heart. If you're not a conservative at 55, you don't have a brain, right? While I don't agree with that, I will say that as I get older, I understand the sentiment behind it, right? And what I mean by that is I do remember being young, 21, 22, and having those like somewhat out there ideas that I've kind of abandoned. It came from a good place, but it just wasn't practical or maybe even moral, right? So one of the example that I'm going to use is if I was 22 or 23 and somebody asked me or just like the topic of like child molestation or something like that, right? And 1,000% I would have like way more sympathy and empathy like when I was younger. And the thing is, now I have 2 daughters, I have a son, like I have 3 kids, and I've thought experiment, put myself in that situation. If somebody were to, God forbid, like do something to one of my kids, like molest one of my kids, I would want to kill them. I would want somebody to kill them. I would want, the justice system to murder them. And here's the thing, why I say that is because that's me. That's my human emotions.
Yeah.
That's why we have a justice system in place. That's why we have people to exact proper punishment, because if it was left to the individual, it would just be vigilantism and all that stuff. So like the system has to be better than the individual, right? But the point of me going down that road was to say that I absolutely think that as you get older, some things become more clear. And that's kind of a bad example because I still don't think that, child molesters should be put to death, But just to kind of illustrate the point of like, as you get older, you kind of understand like sometimes like some of these ideals that I've had in the past when I was really young, as you get older, you start to see like both sides and you start to think like, oh, it's a horrible thing, but what I was advocating for just is not and will never be practical, or is, like you just kind of,
It's not practical now, yeah.
exactly. So that's what I mean when I understand the sentiment of it, and I understand how people kind of pull a little bit more towards the center as they get older.
100%. Yeah, I think it's about just developing us into a more robust human being and understanding nuance. I think nuance is a huge thing. I would say when I was in high school, I was same thing. I was hard right, and when I got early, at least in the first couple years of college, I was super like radical, like in favor of like some absurd policies that would, even today, we've changed a lot. Like Medicare for all is like could be a real thing in some near future, barring corruption. But I definitely learned to understand the nuance a lot, and a lot of that is having conversations with people who are on the opposite side, and usually we don't come out agreeing at the end, but I can at least understand their points better, and I'm much more likely to not just like scream at them, like, and if I would have heard some arguments, I mean, I still think a lot of the Republican ideology is disgusting, and I would call myself a pretty progressive person, I guess. But now I would have a conversation with that person, and if they said something like overtly racist or sexist, then I would probably call them out on that, and I might explain to them how some of their policies are that, but I wouldn't like scream at them like I probably would have in college. I probably would have been like, "You fucking fascist, racist piece of shit" or something. And now it's just like I know that there's no use in that. I mean,
there are some people that are
makes
just
you feel
literally
good.
disgusting.
There are people that should be called like Steve King. I think people want to call him a racist. I think that's fine, and he shouldn't be elected. And people like Milo Yiannopoulos and all these people, like, call it. They're a fucking bigoted piece of shit, and no one should pay attention to them. But for the most part, most of these people are trying. I mean, there's a lot of corrupt politicians because of the money in politics, and we got to end that. It's going to be a long road. But I think for the most part, most of these people do think that they're doing the right thing. And so just telling them that they're a racist piece of shit is not going to help your case at all, and bringing them closer to your side.
Yeah, and it's fuck, man. I guess the takeaway, at least for me, is it seems like almost everything is just infinitely more nuanced than you could ever imagine,
That's right.
The more I try to get to the bottom of things as I get older, because I'm, I like to solve things. I like to, all right, well, what's going on here? Let me figure out what's going on here. And it's like the harder you dig, it's just, there's a never-ending hole of just like, that's what I mean. Everything is just infinitely more nuanced than you can imagine. And that's right. I guess just the existential crisis we find ourselves in as a civilization, trying to figure this shit out. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's important, but that's the thing. That's why people's opinion, like we've said, our opinions have changed because you hit that new now I'm just scratched the surface. Oh, well, now I'm at the next layer. And then, oh, no, I've hit this layer of crust. And, oh, well, now I think this. And so, sometimes you bounce back and forth. But as long as you're continuing to grow and develop, I think that's the main thing is stay maybe, I don't know. I think there's a place for, like, radicalism and things like that. Like we talked about earlier with Malcolm X. There are positives to having someone who's very
far radical to one side. But there are also disadvantages, and so we need to weigh those, and we need to keep, as long as you keep searching for where is the truth in this, or what is the things based on opinion, is what is the best outcome that we can find. And if that means that you change your opinions, I think that's good. And I think as long as we're learning and growing and discovering new things all the time, as long as we stay hungry for that, I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's such a perfect thing that you said, and I think that's the best takeaway to this whole podcast is just always try to be a better person than you were the day before. And it's just growth, and that's, I'll tell you what, one of my favorite parts about the day is I get home and I, spend some time with my kids and my wife, and, then maybe my wife goes to bed, and I enter into an altered state of mind and, enjoy some substance and just sit down and like kind of reflect on the day. And it's not always fun. Like, especially like, my wife was just gone for like 3 months, and it was just me with my 3 kids working a full-time job. Like, it was fucking nuts. And there was a lot of times like I'd put the kids to bed and I'd go sit on the couch and I'd just be like, man, I did not do very well today. Like, I could have done a lot better. And then the thing is, you do a little bit better the next day. You like kind of figure out where you did wrong, and I'm pretty not proud of the person I am, but like I think I'm all right. I think I'm an all right guy. I'm easy to get along with. I'm pretty cordial, and I think that is a result of not being hard on yourself, but like really examining yourself, like true introspective thought, having the hard, like just auditing yourself pretty much, I can't tell you how many times like I would like get into an argument with somebody, or like things got heated, and like on the drive home or just at home, and I'm thinking, and I'm like, why do I think that way? Or like just really auditing yourself, like did I deserve that? Or sometimes you're like, no, I didn't deserve that, like I was not. And then sometimes like, yeah, it's kind of being a dick. Yeah, it's kind of in the wrong there, Yeah. Which is a really good thing to do. It's just perpetual growth. That's
I agree. I think your point is a very good one. So introspection is huge, and I think probably doesn't happen as much as it should, because as much as like we've grown more connected with the proliferation of social media, things like that, we also have created a lot of enclaves where it's just closed in, and I only talk in this Facebook group because everyone else, I don't want anyone to disagree with me. I don't want any pushback against my ideas.
really
And I think that can hurt your growth a lot, obviously. Like even just so much as like you're saying, just sitting down, and that's, I don't know, I've always been like a night owl kind of guy, and like I think that's one of the reasons is because, like, I guess the same could be said for the morning, but here the morning is crazy. But like I just sit down, relax a little bit, and just think about, what happened today, or like I can just like get on my phone and read some news, and then think about it, and maybe like write some notes out and try to like think about why I think this way, or how I, just the like meta shit, I guess. Like, why do I think this way and things like that. So I think that's incredibly important, and not enough people do it. And part of that is because a lot of people are busy. They have. I mean, like even you're like your wife is gone. Like you don't have a ton of time to think about that. But it's important to set aside some time to do that, to take care of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think meditation is probably good. It's something that I've always tried to do, but like I just never really can like really commit. But I've heard a lot of people, speak highly about it. But the last thing I want to say, because I'm sure you got to wrap up here soon, and it is 10:20 here, and I've rambled on about nonsense for long enough. But
It's all right. It's what we do.
One of the really important things that if anybody is listening, that I wanted to kind of stress is when you're doing that, and I've been pretty vocal about like, depression and anxiety, which is in and of itself, for another podcast, we'll talk about, you know, the bastardization of people and their mental illnesses that they you know, spout all over social media. But for the record, for credentials, I do have pretty severe anxiety. I get a check for it from the VA every month. So the thing is, think about this. So, like, how many people do you know, not personally, but just have ever heard of, like, celebrity, normal people in your everyday life, whatever, but, like, people that have committed suicide, and everyone always, oh, they were just, like, they were the best person, man. They were awesome. They were, like, nice and happy and, you know, smart and funny and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that there's two byproducts of living a life like that. One is when you are an introspective person and you audit yourself and you just try to be the best you can be, you get that way by being kind of hard on yourself and saying, like, I don't really like that aspect of my character. I want to change that. Like, I want to be better. And it's tough because you're kind of bringing into light, like, that shadow archetype, like those things of your psyche and you know, yourself that you don't even want to acknowledge because you don't like them. It's really tough to acknowledge those and try to change those. It's a struggle. It's a fight. You know, it is a fight. And that's what I was saying. You get that way. People get that way by doing those things. And the other byproduct of becoming, you know, a great person is it can get really depressing. And the point I guess I want to make is just, don't be too hard on yourself. You know, like, it's like, think about the fact of what we're doing. You know, we're thrust out of a birth canal into the ether, you know, from the void to the known, from the ether to the bone, right? You know, it's we're just manifesting this existence, and it's just, all right, let's try to figure this shit out. Well, what are we figuring out? I don't know. You know, like, there's no answers.
Literally everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, literally you're trying to figure out everything.
Yeah, so, like, don't be too hard on yourself if you don't have all the answers, or if you mess up and you do something you're not proud of, or you want to be better. Like, it's really tough, and we're like I'm doing with you now. Like, we're all doing the same shit. Like, we're all going through it together. You know, like, and it's really good to talk about that stuff, and just like I said, that's my takeaway to this whole thing is just, to put it in layman's terms, try to be better, but don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, I agree. You can't just be kicking yourself all the time, or you'll just be. That's the only thing you'll think about, and you'll never have a chance to get to improve yourself. So
yeah,
I think that's a beautiful, poignant point by you, and we can probably wrap up on that. But we definitely got to have you back soon. Maybe sometime we'll do a little menage a trois and get Ari on here too.
Fuck yeah, man! I don't even.
I think you'd be pretty. A lot of your ideas seem to line up. Maybe some of them will line up closer with him than with me. But I think all of us are probably pretty close and can have some interesting discussions.
Yeah, man, I welcome that. It's kind of a rare thing. You don't get to do it all the time. You know, just have like a good conversation. It's like a drug, kind of. You know, it's like you need your fix, and then you have a great conversation, and then it ends. You're like, oh, you feel high for a little while. Yeah, that's good.
It's stimulating, man. It's fun. That's probably the biggest reason why I do this, because I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna change a ton of people's minds, but it's fun, and I hate listening to my own voice, but I can come back on here and listen to this, and it's similar to that self-reflection thing that we were just talking about, and I'll be arguing with Ari, and then I'll go, that's kind of a shitty point I made there. Next time, don't say that, George. Like, that's a dumb thing to say. So. Like, it's good, and it's, I don't know, it's fun. I love talking to people who are usually smarter than me and let me in on their insights.
Yeah, that's what all I want to do is just surround myself with people that are better than me, so they can bring me up to their level by proxy. But no, exactly. Good company is good. No, I would absolutely love to be on again. I'm sure I will. We just got to figure out time and stuff.
Yeah, we'll figure out time. I have so many lined up. I have to do my dad probably this weekend. I got to do another one with Ari that maybe we'll do tonight. Like, next Monday, I'm going to try to get Aaron back on. So it's a mess. But man, this time of day, I'm almost always free. So if you get it in your head, like, I got something I want to talk about. Just call me. It's fine. We'll make it work.
Yeah, you were. You'll hear it on the audio when I send it over, but you just turned into a robot there for a second. So
That was sick.
yeah, that's probably the cue. But no, I would love to be back on anytime. I'm sure we'll work it out. In the next near future. But yeah, I'm gonna go inside and I'm gonna drink a Baja Blast Mountain Dew, like any great American would.
Like a real American.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get a little bit of sleep before I got to go to work. But thank you so much for having me, man. It was genuinely all my pleasure.
Hell yeah, man. No, I'm so happy we did this too. It's been way too long since we talked, and this is another reason why I do the podcast, is to get people that I don't stay in contact as well as I should have, and we can get them on the podcast. I can steal like a couple hours of your time every week or so.
Yeah, dude. Two birds, one stone. I love it. It's great.
All right, man. Go relax, get some sleep. Make sure you sleep enough. That's important. So.
Yes. All right. I'm heading out. Thank you so much again for having me. I will talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Love you, dude.
All right. Love you, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there was everybody. Thanks for listening. That's my discussion with Seth. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Sorry for the audio issues. That was the first time we've done it. We didn't exactly have the best setup on Seth's end, but we're working on it. We're going to get it figured out, especially because he's going to be back on a lot of times. In addition, if you want it, if enough people ask for it, I will release another version, which is just from Seth's point of view, and you can still hear my voice, but it sounds like I'm on a telephone call because I am. So I spent a lot of time trying to edit this one down to make it sound as best as I could, to make my audio sound as clear as possible when I could, and to make his sound as good as it could, and also include all of his audio. I did have to cut a couple of his little comments out, like when he was agreeing with me. So if it didn't sound like he agreed with me enough, it's because I had to cut some of that stuff out. But in any case, don't forget to go check out Seth's band, Afterwords. That's after plus WORDS, Afterwords, all one word, on YouTube. They've got a new single out with a video called The Deep End. And I gotta say, it's really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun listening to it. I've been listening to a lot of their past EP too, so don't forget to get that. Support DIY artists. It's really important. They're putting out some of the best music. So if you're grumbling about pop music or something, don't at the same time forget to support DIY artists like Afterwords. So I'm going to leave you with that track. If you'd like to see the music video and everything else, don't forget to go check them out on Spotify, YouTube, and all the other social medias. And don't forget to check out the Free China Post on all social medias. And you can also check out our website, FreeChinaPost.com. Don't forget to do all that stuff. We really appreciate you guys' support in any way, even if it's just dropping a comment down below, letting us know what kind of topics you'd like us to talk about, or if you think we got something wrong, or maybe we did something right. All of that means a whole lot to us. So I will leave you with this track from Afterwords.